gavel first?
If you would like, yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the City of Highland Parks Plan and Design Commission on January 17th, 2023. Will the secretary please read the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Mantis.
Present.
Commissioner Quinlan.
Present.
Commissioner Bruckman.
Present.
Commissioner Kirsch.
Present.
And Vice Chair Moore.
Present.
Commissioner Hecht, not present. Commissioner Haynes further, not present for the record.
Thank you. Before we get started, we have a new member of our commission. Would you please introduce yourself?
My name's Danny Mantis. I'm new to the Plan Design Commission. Been in Highland Park for about 5 years now, since 2018. Moved here with my wife, and we have 2 wonderful kids, and call it home now. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for volunteering your time and participating with us. All right, we have 2 items on the agenda today.
I do recognize Councilmember Stolberg.
Oh, and recognizing Councilmember.
I need no
Stolberg.
recognition. We're good.
Okay.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Joel.
Usually the first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. We do not have minutes this week. We will have them perhaps next time.
That is correct. We do anticipate minutes for the next meeting. Of course, the commission may recall the prior minute taker passed away. So
Yes, very sad. Okay, the first item of business is our public hearing 2022 PUD-009 for a special use permit in the nature of a preliminary and final plan development for a 24-unit multifamily development. Design, review, and plat of consolidation, and the zoning and subdivision variations for height, stories, setbacks, maximum lot coverage, burial of utility lines, and other requests as appropriate, including lighting, landscaping, and off-street parking. And this is at 636, 640, and 650 Walnut Street, and 1606 and 1622 Oakwood Avenue. The other item is a public hearing for an amendment of the special use permit. And let's see, that's 2022 SUP 011 for an amendment to the special use permit and public hearing 2022 PUD 013 for a special use permit in the nature of a preliminary and final plan development for a new salt dome building and accessory structures and uses with design review and variations, including height, setback, landscaping, and others at 1150 to 1180 Half Day Road and 1100 Half Day Road. So let's go on to the first item, which is the public hearing 2022 PUD 009 for a special use permit for the 24-unit multifamily development.
Thank you.
Oh, so Carl, would you like to give us a quick presentation?
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, can I just interject that I've reviewed the last meeting and all the materials and am prepared to vote?
Yes, thank you, and you as well.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
was not at that meeting, but I've reviewed too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the update for the project that's called Woolbright, located at the various addresses on Walnut and Oakwood and LaSalle. Okay, so as the commission may recall, this is a planned development, including variations and public benefit proposal, and also design review, including lighting and landscaping variations, and then a plat of consolidation with variations. Proposals for a 4-story, 24-unit multifamily development with below-grade parking, access off of Walnut Street. Project is in the RM2 zoning district. Article 23 overlay layer does not apply. So the PDC consideration, so this was at the November 15th meeting, and then it was continued to December 20th, and then on the 20th it was continued to this date, though the commission did direct findings of fact, FOF, findings of fact, recommending approval with 2 conditions. One, that the net cash payment towards the housing trust be net $150,000. Then the applicant comply with the engineering division comments within that memo. The applicant made the following updates and revisions. They updated their narrative to indicate that they would maintain the $150,000 net cash payment towards the housing trust. The packet included the revisions, but these are just bullet pointed here. So they added the 10-foot vision triangle on the circular driveway on the east end. And the parking space did have a slight encroachment. They added the grade exhibit to verify height. They added various 5-foot dimensions to the foundation landscaping to verify that depth was met. They updated their encroachment exhibit to indicate that residual rear yard, the residual north property line rear yard encroachment. And then they updated the relief request to include section 93.235 driveway relief. And then the applicant also confirmed photometric and landscape, photometric proposal complied, and the landscaping height installs complied. This is the updated variation summary. This is the project right now, the variations that are requested. These are not the in-depth dimensioned requests. Those were included in the report. And of course, there's questions. I can go over that. I'll just run through them really quick. So the top one is to allow 2 required off-street parking spaces within a front yard. The applicant has a parking space near the access way, and then also the accessible space in the circular drive near the front entrance. To allow a trash structure in a front yard, that's just a structure encroachment. Originally, it had a 0-foot setback, and the applicant pushed it back to, I believe, an 18-foot setback, but it still encroaches. Relief to the front yard setback, that's for the building, and the dimensions were included in the report, and that hasn't changed, and so that was presented in prior presentations. Same thing with number 4, or no, number 4 was new on December 20th. So the trash structure also encroaches within the 3-foot setback within the rear yard. The rear yard residual north, there's no change to that, but the applicant updated their encroachment exhibit. This is along the north side that the building encroaches. Subdivision relief, there's no change to that. Relief to the subdivision code is requested, including to the lot shape and configuration, as well as the burial of utility lines. Height relief, that hasn't changed. That was an original request going back to the November 15th meeting for both story and maximum dimension height relief. Lot coverage, that hasn't changed since the last meeting. That's a relief request that's still requested. Then landscaping, this hasn't changed since the December 20th meeting either. And this is just to the 5-foot depth plantings. There's just several points along the vehicular use area where a 5-foot depth is not met. And that would be, that hasn't changed since the December 20th meeting. That's the area of the site plan where you have the circular drive and then the main drive where it's within 25 feet of the north property line. And then the new item is the chapter 93.235 subparagraph H driveway relief. And that's, I paraphrase here, but the code citation was in the report. That's essentially to allow more than 2 driveways on a residential property. And then the circular drive, the entrance and then the exit points don't meet the 60 feet width requirement. And that's, I guess that was new on December 20th, but newly identified for this meeting. Though the plans are the same, that plan is the same that was presented to the December 20th meeting. Updated city comments. Sorry, I should pause if there were questions.
Any questions?
The updated city comments. So I tried to distill 4 somewhat specific questions from the commission at the last meeting on December 20th. And I put that to our engineering division, who put that to Civil Tech, which is the city's third-party reviewer. In general, no objections. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. These comments were in the packet. They were in the packet for commission, applicant, and public review. So I paraphrase in these comments. In general, there were no objections. I will qualify that statement. There were, I don't know if objection is the right word. Oh, I think advice.
Advice.
Yes, advice. It related to what is called the pork chop, basically the barrier between the entrance and the exit to the main entrance. And then the fact that the loading and unloading was moved back and became a circular drive where Civil Tech has kind of suggest. I mean, again, this was, I paraphrase, this is in the packet. They kind of advised that it didn't have to be that way. Though, you know, I will point out that that's not how the applicant originally submitted their plans, obviously. And I'll let the applicant speak for themselves. But that's not how they were originally submitted. Those were changes the applicant made, presumably based on feedback and input they received at the November 15th and December 20th meetings. But yeah, in terms of safety, again, I'm paraphrasing. It's in the packet. You can read their words. essentially no safety-related concerns regarding the ingress and egress in the intersection there on Walnut and Second. They did recommend that the circular drive be widened 2 to 4 feet because that would allow a bypass. They stated something to the extent of none of the typical factors exist regarding requiring restricting left-hand turns out of the property. That was in either their second or third comment. And they talked about how, and again, I paraphrase, in general, when you restrict a property, having left-hand turn movements is more for higher order streets that have more traffic like arterials. And then they talked about no significant concerns related to pedestrian vehicle interaction at driveways or the second Walnut crosswalk. And of course, again, they had more, look, these are just the summary, but again, that was in one of the later attachments in the report. Forestry clarified their heritage tree position. Again, their words are in the packet, available for commission, public, and applicant review. They're posted online. Essentially, their main clarification was that the building, as it's designed now, from the forester's standpoint, you really couldn't make the driveway go south to LaSalle because it would impact that heritage tree in the southwest corner. I think forestry's position was that to protect that tree, you would need to redesign the building and the layout. But as proposed, it wouldn't work to go to the southwest corner on LaSalle. But again, forestry's comments, they're in the packet. I merely paraphrase. In the engineering division, they had no new comments. Their comments were the same. Motions needed. If the PDC wants to adopt the findings of fact recommending approval and approving the design review, the following essential motions would be needed. So there's the PUD, which includes the variations and the public benefit that was proposed. So that needs to be some type of motion to adopt the finding of fact recommending approval. I did include the 2 conditions in the findings of fact. They were in there. Those were the ones that were on this slide, the top 2, the net cash payment, which the applicant did indeed modify their narrative to state that was their intention. And then the second point, complying with the engineering division comments. And then there would need to be a motion for the design review. The Plan and Design Commission is the authority for design review. And the landscaping variations, that should actually be struck. There are no lighting variations. I apologize for that. There's just the landscaping, the 5-foot depth within the vehicular use area. That's within the PDC's authority to approve, including that variation as well. And then there's the plat of consolidation on that. Again, that's the PDC's recommendation body, and there'd be some type of motion to adopt those findings of fact recommending approval. And that is my presentation. Yeah, that's from the prior. So yeah, I mean, I can go through the plans if needed. They were in the packet. I can take questions if there are any.
Do we have any questions going down the line from my right? Any questions for staff?
No questions?
Questions?
Question.
Questions?
On the so-called pork chop, if Civil Tech doesn't seem to think that's necessary, is there anything in the finding of facts, I didn't see it, that would necessitate that if we approve them, they could not remove the pork chop if that became what the city,
I mean,
what our engineers and our traffic people agree should be done?
you can, I guess my comment on that would be that you could put it to the applicant if they want to remove it or not, and if they want to move it, the commission could always, with one of the motions, could make some type of statement that that specific thing could be revised for the council.
Carl, if I may? I would think since that pork chop condition was discussed heavily, I know Chair Haynes-Further was very much in favor of it, and I believe that's the way the findings were drafted. My thought would be to leave them, should you approve or recommend, to council approving the findings, I would think it would probably be prudent to leave them, note the Civil Tech comment, and while Civil Tech might not require it or recommend it, based on the discussion, the interaction with the homeowners proximate to the site, maybe leave that as it comes to council to decide if we want to leave it as discussed or remove it based on Civil Tech's recommendation. I think it would be easier because the applicant has already agreed to it. I think it's easier to leave it and then let the council decide, rather than to take it out and put the burden on us and then the developer to put it back. That would just be my thought.
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
I will note that the Civil Tech report seemed to think that it was more of a danger than it was a help. So, I mean, you can read the report any way you want, but
Either way.
Any comments?
No.
Right.
Thanks. And then oh, yes.
Does the petitioner wish to present anything else? Yes. You've been sworn before, yes.
Yes, one time. I
Yes.
believe this is the fourth meeting.
Yes.
Good evening,
Good
and
evening.
welcome the new commission member.
Thank you.
We really don't have much to add. At the last meeting, we got a unanimous positive recommendation based on the prior three meetings that we had. And the two conditions, as Carl mentioned, were that we increase the public benefit to $150,000, which we have already agreed and submitted a new letter saying that that's our intention and that's what we're going to do. And the other condition was that we work with the engineering department to try to follow the recommendation. We had a meeting last week with the new Director of Public Works and 3 engineers. I think we had a very productive meeting, and we are confident that we will be able to follow their recommendations. They are supposed to send a revised letter prior to the City Council meeting, which right now is scheduled for January 23rd. So we're confident that we can agree to the terms from the engineering department. And then the other component was there were questions in regards to safety for pedestrians and vehicles, and that's why Civil Tech was involved a second time. And based on the letter that they submitted, there's no danger to pedestrians or to traffic, and they still consider that the traffic out of this building is minimal.
Thank you. All right, we will now open the floor for public comment. Of course, we will be limiting public comment to 3 minutes apiece. And I would ask that you please apply any comment to what is here tonight and not be repetitive. So if we have public comment, we can start lining up over at the podium and we will get people sworn in. Please state your name and have we sworn you in?
My name is Rick Atterbury from 1661st Street, and yes, I have been sworn in.
Okay, thank you.
On September 29th, the developer hosted a meeting with the neighbors to unveil the plans for the Woolbright. Those plans showed the underground garage driveway would be located on Walnut, and the neighbors immediately recognized that could be a problem. On November 15th, after the canceled meeting on November 1st, neighbors appeared here to express concerns about that single driveway location and the fact that the traffic study was largely kind of a raw count, which is what they were asked to do, and failed to include the impacts of the nature of the traffic on Walnut, which we all live with every day. Emergency vehicle use, downtown special events, Ravinia, and the odd shape of that intersection at Oakwood, Walnut, and First. And if you haven't looked at it, please do. By the way, at just 8:35 this morning, remembering that Walnut is just a 2-lane street with no parking, a school bus did what must have been a time stop and completely blocked the westbound traffic lane of Walnut between First and Second for over 5 minutes. That's the kind of stuff that goes on there. That's real-world traffic on Walnut. By December 20th, the single driveway had, surprisingly, to the neighbors anyway, morphed into a garage entrance plus a semicircular driveway, and the number of curb cuts on Walnut had tripled. To be honest, some neighbors saw that as an affront. And when the packet for tonight's meeting was released on Friday, More details about that semicircular driveway were included, including the fact that it requires, as Carl said, an additional variance beyond the many that are likely to just about be approved. The packet also contains these lines from the developer, and I quote, "Circular drive length is 54 feet from the center of the drive entry to the center of the drive exit instead of the required 60 feet minimum, so we can maintain an existing tree in the parkway, not a heritage tree. 3 curb cuts, driveway approaches are proposed, and as Carl said, only 2 are permitted without a variance. And really tellingly, the developer states there are currently 4 curb cuts on site, and therefore the development will have fewer curb cuts and driveway approaches than the existing conditions," end quote. And that's true. What the developer didn't say was that 3 of the existing driveways now, they're on LaSalle, they're not on Walnut. Walnut is going to go from 1 curb cut to 3 curb cuts. The 4 driveway statement is pretty much meaningless in the context of the traffic inputs on impacts on Walnut. Coming into tonight's meeting, the developer is poised to receive nearly everything they requested. The city will receive some of what they requested, notably minus the buried power lines and the new pavement for LaSalle. And the Walnut Street neighbors are ending up with 3 curb cuts instead of 1 in what's been a rather disheartening process.
Thank you.
My name is Beth Russell. I live at 1633 Second Street in the Arbors Condominium Building.
Have you been sworn in yet?
First time in November I was, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And as a resident, I live there. I face the intersection of Walnut and Second. You see the traffic there throughout the day. I'm retired, so I get to see a lot of traffic throughout the day and evening. We neighbors who are not against the project, we're very for it, beautifying the neighborhood. We know time moves on, we have to upgrade. But none of us have any personal or financial gain for our concerns. We just care about the public safety and the first responder safety going up and down the street, the school buses, the trucks. There's a lot of traffic there. I understand with the driveway, because of the heritage tree over on LaSalle Avenue, it couldn't be put at the southwest corner. Isn't there a chance that it could even be moved further east on LaSalle to just make the adjustment for that? We're not against the project. We're just all about safety, and we have nothing to gain from this except not being left with a problem that we have no remedy for. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dale Cohodes, C-O-H-O-D-E-S. I've been sworn in.
Thank you.
Earlier. And I just want to say that I appreciate being able to speak now for the 3rd time. But I don't think I'm being listened to. And I think my neighbors feel the same way, that we have objected over and over again. We've brought you examples. We've written examples to the concerns we have about the traffic. And we live there. We see it. It's a crowded street. It's going to be made even more crowded. And we do not see why the plan cannot be reverted to the original design, which had the driveway emptying out on LaSalle Street. If it has to be shifted, shift it. And we really would appreciate being listened to. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ruth Freer, and I have to speak a little more slowly because I have a problem with my mouth. Well, a lot of people think I have problems with my mouth, but.
And Ruth, you've been sworn in before.
I have been sworn.
Okay, that's what I remember. Thank you.
And this process has been disheartening, to say the least. We have been here over and over again, and we've been reminded over and over again not to say things that have been said before. It has been disheartening, and so tonight I'm going to try to comply and not say things but just say things I agree with. And I'm talking about the fact that so few people are here because they have felt not listened to before. So what have they done? They've written letters. But then once we write letters, we have been told, well, if it's written in a letter, don't repeat it. Don't repeat it. So I'm just going to talk about things. We're supposed to just say, I agree. And these are a few of the things that I agree with that have been in the letters. I agree with Nancy Carlson's handwritten letter about how difficult it is for residents at Walnut Place to cross Walnut the way it is, and how these curb cuts will endanger their outdoor space and the way they live in their house. Walnut Place has more owners in it than of the other condos combined. They're all senior citizens. This is going to affect them in a terrible way. The senior citizens across the street at the residents, the senior residents, terrible problems with parking. This is going to affect them. I agree with those letters. I agree with Beth Russell, whose extensive research was put in the packet. It has never been mentioned here before. And she identified that the same builder who currently petitions on this project has already purchased property on 2nd Street. And we are quite sure that another condo is on the horizon. This will only make 2nd Street and the entire area more difficult. People in this room didn't have a chance to interact with that research because it was in a letter, and we aren't to talk about something that has been written about in a letter. I agree with the multiple letters from people all over Highland Park talking about the traffic. The traffic study was not a specific traffic study that was done. As a matter of fact, one commissioner casually commented that, maybe the city should conduct a traffic study in that area, which has not been done. Well, it should be done. I agree with that. I agree with the many letters about Walnut's heavy use by emergency vehicles, by commuters, by visitors to all sorts of events that are happening. Ravinia, it's been talked about. I agree with those letters, but people in the audience didn't get a chance to hear from them. The forester with whom I spoke talked to me and said that it was very possible to put a curb cut on LaSalle. Maybe not where it was at one point, but there's plenty of room to move it without endangering the important trees there. I also questioned about a third tree, one that's much closer to Walnut Place. These 3 curb cuts are not going to be friendly to that tree. So I agree with the forester. Democracy is messy. The complex matter of approving this building affects scores of different shareholders, not just the people who are going to live there. I'm counting heads here. I'm glad to see that the vacant seat on this commission has been filled, and I welcome you, but we have a new member and 2 missing members. That leaves really 4 people who have been through this entire process making this decision. I don't think we've been heard. The developer has been granted at least 10 variances. The $150,000, you can't buy a house in Highland Park for $150,000, or at least not many. The needs of the neighborhood and the area have really not been addressed. The issue with having an outdoor dumpster, which has been brought up, has not been addressed. There's no reason for an outdoor dumpster there. This development, we welcome it, but we really feel that we have not been listened to, and that this can be accomplished in a way that enhanced the entire community, the traffic, the people who live there, not just the lucky few who are going to profit for it. So I've tried to say things about which I agree, and I hope that you will agree that this process has not been satisfactory to many of us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, usually how we do it with Walter is we would make a motion and then hold discussion on it. So Carl, would you pull up the slide with the motions on it, please?
They're not exact motions, acting.
Okay.
But they are a reminder as to what needs to be included one way or the other in the motion.
Correct. Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
thank you. All right, so,
Of course, the commission can revise or, deliberate as appropriate.
exactly. So the first motion would be for we would need a motion for the PUD, including the variations listed on the public benefit that was given. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move we approve the findings of fact, granting the planned unit development for this particular addresses.
And just to clarify, I'm sorry, it's a recommendation for approval with adoption of the findings of fact.
Correct.
So recommendation for approval with the findings of fact. Okay, so that's the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Do you want to do discussion?
Oh, yes, so then we would now do discussion.
Any conditions on that?
Thank you, Joel. Those findings including the two conditions.
Yes,
I-
including the two
Just
conditions,
wanted that to be clear for the
Good, yes. Joel.
including the two conditions, which were the $150,000 to the housing fund and the comments to the engineering, working with the engineering department to
Address.
address their comments,
Right, comply with the.
comply with.
And so if we could just have the motion maker and the second confirm that that is the intention of their motions.
That is my intent, correct.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
What do you want, lawyer?
Any discussion? Discussion down, questions or comments down on the left here? Go ahead.
I have discussion. I guess I'll just do them all at once, right? So we got no problem with the consolidation on the lot. It is obviously an unusual space, the way it's been put together. But that's what the plan unit design process is for, and I think the developers have put together quite an interesting proposal, working around the various things that they had to work around. So, and I don't have a problem with the variations in that. The design review, I believe it's a wonderful design. It's going to be another big improvement in Highland Park. I myself am not all that enamored of the way the trash container was handled, but I think that's a minor point. Overall, I would approve the planned unit development. The variances are, to my way of thinking, again, within the planned unit development framework, those variances are all reasonable, but they do statutorily, by our code, they are a lot. And I think we've already hashed out the idea that we're getting a lot of public benefit by raising that contribution to the affordable housing. And I will point out to the commenters that $150,000 goes, it might not buy a single-family house in Highland Park, but it's going to go a long way to moving 2 or 3 families perhaps into housing that they couldn't otherwise afford. So for all those, I also want to, I've listened to all the comments about the traffic as well. I understand the concerns. I drive by there most days taking my son to high school. And the problem for us is, at least for me, is the only scientific evidence, I guess, in front of us is the traffic study that was done by the developer, but reviewed by our own traffic engineers. And the easiest, rather than go through all the data, the easiest thing was just to look at the grades at the intersections. They're either all going to be a level A or B, which is, I think, what they are at now. So when we're, as far as I know, that's the evidence that I have to rely on to approve this without having those kinds of consternations about the traffic.
Thank you. Any comments? Discussion?
Just comments, just more of just thank you. I know you've been in front of us a couple of times now. Thank you again for your presentation, for working with us with the comments and the other commissions. And again, I agree with Commissioner Kirsch. I believe it's going to be a great building again, and thank you. So, I have.
I don't have any comments.
All right, and I've heard too the comments about the traffic, and unfortunately, we live in a place where people don't want to seem to always follow the traffic rules, and that is true on my street and every other street in this town. So I think we've worked with the public and with the developer to try to come up with something that will work the best. I am in agreement that I don't love the trash container, but I am glad it is moved a little further back. So with that said, right now we only have one motion on the table, which is for the PUD. So can we go ahead and vote on that?
You could put it to a vote.
So let's put that to a vote.
Okay.
And I assume this is a voice vote that you need to
Roll call.
read the roll.
Commissioner Mantis,
Aye.
Commissioner Quinlan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brockman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kirsch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The vote is 5-0. And this motion carries, and this item has been recommended to City Council for approval.
All right, so now we need to make a motion on the design review with if someone would like to make a motion approving the design review with the landscaping variations, we can discuss it.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Kirch, seconded by Commissioner Quinlan. Any discussion on this one? Seeing no discussion, let's take a vote.
Okay. Commissioner Mantis,
Aye.
Commissioner Quinlan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brockman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kirsch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Vote is 5-0. This motion carries, and this item has been approved with variations.
All right, and then now we need a motion to adopt the findings of fact for the plat of consolidation with the variations that were stated.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Kirch,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Bruckman. Any discussion? Let's do a roll call for the vote.
Commissioner Mantis,
Aye.
Commissioner Quinlan,
Aye.
Commissioner Brockman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kirsch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. This item has been recommended for approval to City Council.
All right,
Who had the second on the plat? I missed that.
Commissioner Bruckman.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, the next scheduled order of business is public hearing 2022 SUP-00011 for an amendment to the special use permit, and public hearing 2022-PUD-013 for the special use permit and the nature of a preliminary and final plan development for a new salt dome building and accessory structures and uses with design review and variations, including height, setback, landscaping, and others at 1150 to 1180 Half Day Road and 1100 Half Day Road. Carl, do you have a presentation for us?
Yes, I do. One moment.
Yes, and Vice Chair Moore, so this is back before you.
It is
because
back before me.
Although we did deliberate as a commission on this matter, we failed to take a vote on this particular part of this matter, and so we're back before you tonight. This has been properly noticed and advertised, posted on the property, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so yeah, this was properly noticed. I do believe, unless, and Deputy Corporation Counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, since this wasn't continued, I believe we should treat this like it's new. Now, I can keep my presentation brief, but I do at least want to give a very short presentation. That's probably proper, I think, right?
Yeah, there's no risk to treating it brand new. It's motioned up, noticed up, as you said.
Correct, but I will keep my presentation brief. But the information was in the packet. Everything was the same,
Don't we have to go-
except for I had a different opening.
Go through the rigmarole.
No, because it's only.
It's not the public hearing. Carl, can you explain which element?
Oh,
that
yeah,
we're
and so I
talking
made
about
that, I kept everything the same. But in my report, so the SUP that's moving along. The special use permit is sailing along towards the city council meeting on January 23rd. The commission did make a motion and passed a motion to recommend approval of the special use permit. However, upon further review, it doesn't seem like there was a motion for the design review. So the only thing that's requested is the design review with the landscaping variation. So if I just go down to I kept this all the same.
And that is a public meeting, not a public hearing, Madam Chair.
So, yeah, so staff request a motion to approve the design review. Nothing has changed in the plans. This is purely a procedural issue from the last meeting on December 20th. We took care of all the procedures now. We did send out the new notices. I sent out the mailing by regular U.S. mail to the abutters, which is required for design review. So this is only for design review. And so, again, the project is a new, larger salt dome. This is the neighborhood slide, and I have this information in the packet. The dome is relatively, well, I don't like to use adjectives. It's about 850 feet from the single-family homes to the north and about 735 feet to the unbuilt single-family homes that were approved as the Hidden Oak development to the east. The project is an existing 82-foot diameter facility for 2,000 tons of salt storage. That has an existing height of 31.2 feet. Height is defined according to grade and height in section 150.202. Proposals to make it bigger, go higher, have a bigger diameter, and so it's going to have about 4,500 tons of salt storage. And the city council did approve this salt dome facility in their FY 2023 budget. The SUP, we already talked about that. The SUP, like I said, that boat is sailing along to the January 23rd city council meeting. It's the elevation plans, they're in the packet. This information was in the packet. That's an example picture of what it will look like to the right. The lighting, there's no new lighting for this proposed, for which I'm aware. The commission did adopt, as part of their recommendation for approval of the SUP, a condition that if there is any new lighting related to this project, it must meet the maximum 3,000 Kelvin correlated color temperature. There was a landscaping variation request. This information was included in the packet. Foundation plantings are required within 5 feet of the foundation. The city proposes no landscaping within that 5-foot foundation. However, we have our reasons as to why we think that makes sense, including distance from the building to the public way, existing screening to the south and west, the area not being conducive to healthy plantings. It's a salt dome. There could be salt. And then, of course, the big one is that large Berman planting going in along the north along Half Day Road. So this is only for the design review. This is only for the design review. We request a motion on the design review with the landscaping variation. Thanks.
Do we have any questions for staff? Any questions from my left?
None.
Questions?
It's my first time without questions.
I know. So, I guess we need a motion to approve the design of the salt dome structure with the variations, the landscape variations that were listed. Oh, I'm sorry, do we have any comments from the public
I don't think
on the
there's
salt
anyone-
dome?
Oh, there is one member of the public here.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
But they're not here for the salt dome.
Just me.
All right, so can we get a motion to approve the design of the salt dome with the landscaping variation?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Kirch,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Bruckman. Any discussion?
None.
No discussion? Can we take a voice vote then? Or, I'm sorry, a roll call vote.
It's a final action, so a roll call is necessary. On that motion and second, Commissioner Mantis,
Aye.
Commissioner Quinlan,
Aye.
Commissioner Bruckman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kirsch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moore.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. The item is approved with variations.
All right. Would you like to give us an administrative design review update?
I do not have an update. I do not have an update on administrative administrative design review.
We put that on all meetings, Madam Chair. We may or may not have actual updates to provide. But that
That's
is
fine.
just to inform the commission of administratively approved design review items. So that when you're driving around the city, you say, hey, what's going on there? Oh, yeah, the staff had approved that administratively. So we just do that as a matter of information item. So
That's
we don't
fine.
have any information to share this evening. Thank you.
That's fine. I believe our next regular meeting is scheduled for February 7th of 2023. Is that still correct?
That is correct, and I was just checking. I was just checking to see if there will be anything on that meeting. Yeah, so the next scheduled meeting is February 7th. At this point in time, we won't have any public hearings, but it's possible there may be a design review or subdivision. I'll have to follow up. But I don't believe there'll be any public hearings for that meeting date.
All right, well, we'll await our packet. Case briefing?
As you can see, we had a couple of things that happened at City Council on December 14th. One was the appointment of our new commissioner. So you've met. And then we had a couple of things. We had a resolution approving a plat of subdivision for Cedar and Dean Avenue, if you may recall, 166 Cedar and Dean Avenue. That was approved 7-0 by the City Council. The City Council also considered a Plan and Design Commission recommendation regarding animal hospital and/or clinic special permit with a special exception for off-street parking relief and waiver of payment in lieu of off-street parking at 661 Central. That was approved with condition that the employees park in e-parking and that staff see how that arrangement goes after a year and makes a decision on whether or not additional consideration needs to be made on that matter. The council also included a condition with regard to the windows and that they remain uncovered. So that occurred on December 14th. And so what they did is they approved to direct documents essentially that be the case. Those are scheduled for the 23rd for final action. So I should just correct what I said before. They directed staff to produce docs approving with that condition, those conditions rather. Otherwise, that's all the council had in terms of planning design commission items that were recommended to it.
Thank you. Do we have any business from the public? Appears we do not have any public, so therefore there would be no business. All right. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Mantis, seconded by Commissioner Quinlan. All in favor, say aye.
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 The meeting is adjourned.
I didn't want to do all.
I looked at the clock. I thought it said 9 o'clock. I said, what happened?